Hey, Cashflow Ninjas, real quick before we jump into today's episode. I've been asked by many people recently, what has been the one thing that has made all the difference on my journey as a business owner and investor? I started businesses and I've invested in businesses. I've invested in single family real estate, multifamily real estate. I still have a sizable portfolio of multifamily real estate, historic resorts, mobile home parks, oil and gas, life settlements, gold and silver, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I could go on. But the one thing that has changed the financial trajectory for myself and my family has been infinite banking. Yes, you heard that correctly. That is the number one thing I've done over the past 2 decades that have made the single biggest difference. And it's not even close. Setting up and building out a family banking system using infinite banking has enabled me to create my own financial system. This year, it has allowed me to focus and not pay attention to all the chaos in the global economy and global financial markets. I really don't pay attention to all the noise about tariffs, trade wars, markets violently going down and then going back up, or interest rates skyrocketing and wrecking real estate deals and other alternative investment deals. Do not be beholden to other systems. Create your own system. If you're interested in working with me and my team at Producers Wealth to set up your own banking system or your own business and family banking system, then go to getwealthyforsure.com. That's getwealthyforsure.com. When you go to getwealthyforsure.com, you can request a free copy of my best-selling book, Get Wealthy for Sure. Only pay for shipping. You can also watch all of our presentations and schedule a call to explore infinite banking options with me and my team. You don't have to be powerless amidst the chaos. You too can have a financial strategy that provides certainty, predictability, and clarity. You and your family can also get wealthy for sure. Go to getwealthyforsure.com to start your journey today. The world is going through changes. Changes happening at a speed that we have never seen before. This is leading to disruption, chaos, panic, fear, hysteria, and a turbulent economy and marketplace. How do you protect your wealth in a turbulent world? How do you invest for cash flow in alternative assets to escape the rat race in times of uncertainty? How do you decentralize yourself, your family, your community, your business, and your investments to become sovereign and escape the matrix? If you are looking for strategies, tactics, and techniques to escape the rat race and matrix, you are in the right place. My name is MC Laubscher, and this is Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Laubscher. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode and spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. There's over 1,000 podcast episodes, 4 books, reports, webinars, and much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the #1 newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. I've got a fantastic show for you today. I'm joined by Kirsten Tyrrel. She's got an incredible story from starting out as a podcast listener to a particular podcast, the 8-Minute Millionaire, now the Millionaire University, to eventually becoming a millionaire and now hosting the Millionaire University. I've recently connected with her and have had great conversations. Kirsten, it's great to see you.
Great to see you too. I love that we get to do this again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for my listeners and my viewers that's not familiar with you, could you please share a little bit about your journey and your background and what you're up to these days?
Yeah. And I mean, I'll give everybody context. We just had you over on our show, Millionaire University, a couple weeks ago. So I think ours will probably air a little sooner than yours, depending on your schedule. But we got to know each other a little bit. Mostly me getting to hear your story and share that. So head over and listen to that, you guys, if you want more. But for me, I actually started as a listener of an iteration of the podcast I create on now. It used to be called 8 Minute Millionaire, and it was the early days of podcasting when, you had like huge names on your show because there just wasn't a lot of podcasts to have. And so I got to listen to that podcast and hear some of the names now that are just like iconic up in lights in the entrepreneurship world. And I learned so much. And actually happened because the founders hired me to take their podcast photos on the beach. And I was like, what are you doing? You're jumping up and down. This is a podcast about making millions of dollars, and we're just casually jumping up and down on the beach. So I was super intrigued, didn't know how to listen to a podcast, but I figured it out. I subscribed to the show, binged all the episodes. And because I was friends with the founders, we went to the same church. I was able to have a couple conversations, treat them like unofficial mentors, and just asked, like, okay, what are the first important steps to take? What do I do? I'm serious. I realize now I also have 3 kids. We're about the same age. If you can do it, that means I can do it. So there's this whole crazy realization, this paradigm shift of I've been living in one world where you just do certain things and this is the capacity you have, the most you can make, unless you have a certain career path. And that completely shifted and altered my reality. One of the craziest things I think that really contributed to that transformation was asking Tara, one of the founders, like, what does it feel like to be a millionaire? So I could see the lifestyle, I could see the house, I could see whatever. But I said, what does that feel like? And she described it's being able to go to a restaurant and order what you want off the menu based on what you want, not how much the food costs, or going shopping and not even checking price tags. And I remember stepping so fully into that and feeling like I already was in her lifestyle. I was already experiencing that at a root level. And I, to this day, attribute everything that has happened since then to that feeling and just connecting to the core of what it meant and felt like to be successful, to be a millionaire. And so, fast forward, here we are, like 10 years later. I'm now a contributor, a creator. I'm running a lot of the episodes on Millionaire University, which was just a full circle moment. Now I've built multiple businesses, I've made over $1 million, and I'm speaking on the other side of the mic and saying, this is what you need to do. These are the things that I did. So that's kind of in a nutshell what brought you and I together and what my story is, leaving out all the gory details in the middle.
So, you just to recap here. So, you want to listen to a podcast. You found this podcast, 8 Minute Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that they were in the same town as you, or no? Going to the same church, or
Yeah, I
how did
did.
you find out about it?
That's how they found me. They said, "Hey, you're a photographer. Could you do this like last minute photo shoot?" So they were the ones who exposed me not only to their podcast but podcasting as a whole. So
Okay.
that was the intersection. I just didn't understand what they did or know how they made money until I started listening. And yeah, that branched me into starting my own podcast, which I've had off and on for the last 10 years, and all the other fun things.
Okay, so you do a photo shoot for them,
Yep.
and then you realize, hey, they've got the show 8 Minute Millionaire, and you start listening to this, and then you have the paradigm shift and switch, and you see how they live, and you kind of embrace their frame. That's what I'm getting from your story.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, fast forward to today, you are you're hosting now the podcast that that they
Yep.
expose you to, which is now rebranded and called Millionaire University, and you're now teaching it. So you started as a listener, basically.
Mhm.
Well, so you obviously connected with them as a photographer, doing photography, but then you started as a listener. You grew, you took action,
Yep.
and now you're in the seat that you aspire to, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I love it. And yes, I will say that even though I knew them and I was friendly with them and we've remained friends over the years, I definitely, it was listening to the show and it was then being exposed to entrepreneurship as a whole. I didn't realize I kind of already was one having a photography business, but it was the
Mm.
online entrepreneurship. It was this kind of opening of the door into creation in a totally different way. I had 3 young kids living in a beach town, And for me to make money, I had to leave the house. I had to go do the photo shoots, which I loved, but it wasn't scalable. It wasn't sustainable long term, especially while the kids were little. And so that really cracked open this whole entire world to me of how to do things that even at the time didn't exist yet. But I was there. I was in the right place at the right time for a lot of stuff that fell into my lap. And I was just a constant student. So yeah, I guess you could say I went from student to now instructor, which is awesome.
I will say it's a great tribute to just to the podcast host. And I mean, just speaking from experience, that's the highest compliment that somebody can actually give you and your show is if they started out as a listener, they took action, and then they changed their life
Yeah.
and the life of their family. So we had, we've had listeners reach out to us. I'll just give a shout out to one, Julie Lamb from Good Egg Investments. She started listening to the show 9 years ago on her drive to her corporate job, and then eventually took action, became financially free, invested, and now she's got she's got a company that's doing a ton of deals and continue to do a ton of deals. So to your point, that is great compliment for those hosts, and obviously they were great mentors and teachers to you, and now you're taking the reins and paying it forward, right?
Exactly.
And other people listening. So this is a cycle of wealth and just learning and growing and giving back. I love it. Tell me a little bit about the businesses too. As an entrepreneur, you're into a ton of you're doing a ton of stuff. And then obviously doing a lot of emotional intelligence coaching, which we'll get to for entrepreneurs. But tell me some of the other businesses that you've started. And obviously it's not all just rainbows, unicorns, fluffy bunnies and
Not
pillows.
at all.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
I think it's because of the fact that it's not all rainbows, butterflies, and pillows that I do what I do now, but I'll just kind of give some context leading up to that. When I met Justin and Tara and I was doing the photography business, and like I said, it opened this door into the online world. I started my own podcast, and you want to talk about like influential and being able to impact other people. I think podcasting can be something that feels so isolating. I mean, you have guests on and that's really fun and social, but there's so much of the audience that you don't really get to know unless you are really good at curating a community off the podcast.
Yep.
And so I had that a little bit, but it's been really fun years later. For me, I jumped into saying, okay, I love this podcast because of what I'm learning from 8 Minute Millionaire. I'm being exposed to business, and these are things I need. What are things I already have that I can offer to others? And so because I was in that season of motherhood and I was noticing there were a lot of women who felt disconnected, I decided to create a community around that, talking about motherhood, talking about how to thrive in motherhood and not just survive in it. And so I brought on a guest and I was doing 5 episodes a week. It expanded my network like crazy. Just didn't even really know what I was doing was actually really strategic and smart. It just kind of worked out. And then looking back, I was like, wow, that was really a brilliant move. Thank goodness I just took one step at a time and didn't really know what I was doing, because I think it would have freaked me out if I'd realized the magnitude of what was going to grow from that. But it was really powerful. Even years later, I'm still hearing people, women who say, I started my business because I listened to your podcast, or I totally survived that season of motherhood, or, just the relationships that were curated from that. No matter what business I continue to do from there, it all springboarded from starting my own show. So I went on to dabble in sales. My husband and I started an Amazon FBA business. I'm not proud to say I think we've started just about every business, because I realize now there's a lot of squirreling out and kind of an obsession with just learning how things work. And I've even joked, sitting where I am in Millionaire University, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing how all these incredible entrepreneurs like you are making money, building wealth. And there's a little piece of me that wants to just try it and dabble in it and do all of the things. But for the most part, I'm a lot more rooted now. So Amazon FBA, sales, leading teams, sales teams, I mean, you name it, we have done it and tried it. Digital products, courses, coaching, very much mostly in the online realm, because I've had the family. I homeschooled my kids for 5 years. So there's a need for flexibility and not this really heavy hitting, building a whole company with a lot of team members. So it's been very conservative, but I've also found a ton of success being able to recognize I have a skill set in sales and I'm really good at connecting to people. And when I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm good at sales, I will add that when I'm truly serving, it is really fun for me to connect people with products and offers and other people. So yeah, that's kind of been the journey. And within there, like you said, and like I mentioned, it's not fluffy and fun all the time. There were so many points where you get a little delusional and think like, oh, it's always going to be on this upward spiral. I'm just going to keep making more and more. I'm like winning the lottery every month. This is insane. And then inevitably something happens, whether it's in your control or out of your control. And so I've had a few of those moments that just crumble you and make you think, okay, like, am I serious about continuing to pursue this path? Do I really have what it takes now that I've gone through the hard to stay in the world of entrepreneurship, or do I want to retreat? And I've kind of had a little bit of both. I've taken some years off and just been really afraid to build again. But I take comfort, and I've always shown up again when I realize every book I've ever read about successful people, there have been at least one monumental fail that they've had to overcome. And so I've really tried to learn from those principles and what is it that they had to do to step back up and show up again. And for me, it was finding that intersection of the emotions, like recognizing, especially as a female, like we're so emotionally driven. Men are too, but I think we all know women tend to be more emotional. And there's so much of my decisions in business and outside of it that were being made without recognizing how much that contributed. And I think in the corporate world, we have a lot more exposure to tools like this. There's a lot of trainings that are embedded into the company, and it doesn't happen as much in entrepreneurship. You're very much out on your own and you have your fails alone. And so that's kind of like the short version to get us to the current day. You've tried it. I've probably tried it too. If I haven't tried it, I know how to do it, and I could probably tell you how to do it.
Right. No, you sign up for a lifelong personal development
Yeah.
course, basically, and it's ups and downs and ups and downs. And even when you've had, some levels of success, there's always just a way that this game humbles you
Mm-hmm.
and brings you back pretty quickly. Tell me a little bit more about this emotional intelligence. You mentioned the emotions.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is for business owners and investors. I think if this is the one area, if you can actually get better at this, you will excel at both, because we humans, we're strange creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and driven by emotions. Tell me a little bit about emotional intelligence, emotional IQ, as people have called it too.
Yeah.
Just the ability to stay calm and handle, a lot of pressure, and bad times or challenges, or, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So much of it is tied into understanding that your feelings, like your emotions, your feelings are connected to your physical body and your logical brain. And as entrepreneurs, we try to stay in the logical brain. We try to just have our plans, do our work, stay in our lane, do our thing. And we will push ourselves to the point of either burnout, where we're not even factoring in emotions. We're just saying, like, well, we have to be tough. This is the season for pushing. I just have to do all the things that necessary because I want to be successful. And there's been so much in culture too that has been all about, I mean, I read the books like the 10X rule by Grant Cardone, and just push harder, go stronger. And I don't think there's anything completely wrong with that. I think the problem lies when we are all in that logical brain and we are ignoring the fact that our physical body has to come along with it. So for my example, I went through some really big letdowns and what some would call failures. They're just learning experiences, but they felt like huge failures. And I couldn't understand why every time, even though the opportunities would present themselves and I had plenty of time left, I was only in my like early 30s when I had my first big failure. So plenty of time, why I kept sabotaging. And it was because I didn't really understand that when I'd gone through those hard things, that trauma, that really tangible experience had been locked into my DNA. And so moving forward, anytime I faced a decision, an opportunity, I wasn't just looking at that opportunity logically. There were pieces of me that physically reacted to that. And so this brings in like your nervous system and your sense of safety. And so investing, things that require big money, you don't just see it as the investment decision. There's a whole picture that's conjured up with that, of the safety of your family, the safety of your future, your reputation, validation from other people. And so if you have any kind of discord in your past, not even related to money, or especially if it's related to money, that brings up those feelings of you're not safe, or this is going to be a really bad decision. Like physically, your body can shut it down. And a lot of people will say, oh, I just had a bad gut feeling about that. When I'm not going to discount those, they're very real. But a lot of times we are kind of creating that because we don't have language, we don't have understanding for why the physical body feels that way, why we feel so triggered, or why we respond the way we do if an investment goes poorly and it feels like the whole entire world is on fire. So emotional intelligence is just really, it's an understanding of what's happening physically within you. It's taking the time to step back and be a lot more intentional and not say, okay, we're here to suppress emotions or emotions are bad. We're here to say, where do they fit and what can I learn from this? And how can I use these to fuel my success and my vision for what I want instead of hinder me? Because without emotional intelligence, that's typically what happens. You're hindered, you self sabotage, you don't understand what's happening. And that's why you look back after a few years and say, what have I done? Like, why did I do that? Why do I keep doing the same cycle? Or why am I constantly afraid of this? So it's not this deep dive, we dissect every single past history story, but it's starting to recognize patterns and it's creating life and intention in a different way.
What are some of the things that people can do to increase their emotional intelligence? And it's interesting. I've got several of these books in my Amazon cart. You know that trick, right? Where I gotta get this book, but I've got 5 other books on my book right next to my bed, which I'm busy reading. So I'm like, I'll just put these in the cart right now. But there's actually 2 because I have not traveled a lot over the past 5 years, but I recently traveled this year quite a bit. And the airport, there was like 2 books that caught my attention, and it was all on emotional intelligence right there. Obviously, got the nice space and the on the bookshelf in one of the stores, but so I've got a couple of those in the cart. But what are some of the things that people can do listening to this and say, yeah, my emotions kind of drive a lot of my decision making behavior when it comes to business and investing? How can I change that?
It's such a loaded question, and I don't want to like oversimplify it, but I will say one of the best things you can do anytime is to get curious. And instead of, we think we're making choices but most of the time we're in autopilot and we stop even recognizing the little decisions that we're making. And so I think even taking a day, a week to audit yourself, audit the decisions that you're making, pay attention to how you feel when you're making those choices, and just start to be aware of your own behavior. I think in the beginning, I talked about for me stepping into a new identity and saying, like, oh, I feel like a millionaire, and that's going to completely contribute to different actions. Look at your actions to start to reverse engineer that and say, what do I believe and what do I feel right now? Why am I choosing that? Why am I showing up the way that I do? What are the things I don't like about the way that I engage in my business? What do I wish was going to improve? How do I wish I could make more money? And start to like work your way backward. And then it's just a matter of getting into, again, don't want to oversimplify it, but getting into the situation where you can recognize your own reaction patterns. Because a lot of us are very reactive. We don't respond based on how we want to respond. We have this intention that we might set. We're like, okay, for me as a mom is the best example I can give. I'm not going to lose it today. I'm going to be so good. Like, Mary Poppins, right? And then by the end of the day, you're a raging psychopath and you regret so many of the breakdowns. And so where's the divide here? Like, what happened? And so many of us don't recognize that there's this constant pattern happening within our bodies if we're threatened. And this might not even be business related. I might sit down to do work, but because I've had 10 interruptions and I'm really anxious about something going on at the kids' school or something going on with my husband's work, something like that is contributing to my stress levels and my tolerance. We all have a window of tolerance that we can handle so much. And as soon as we get shot out of that window of tolerance, we're going to get shot into fight or flight mode where it doesn't even matter. It could be the final little thing that happens. You get the email, somebody wants a refund, or you find out an investment has gone badly, and it just shoots you right into fight or flight. And the next person who comes across you, they're going to get yelled at. You're going to want to walk away from the conversation. You're going to disengage, or you're also going to get shot down on the bottom part of the window of tolerance into the fawn response or the freeze response, where you're just like, I can't do anything. You're physically freezing, or you're physically in fight or flight the same way that you would if you were being threatened by a bear or a rattlesnake. And so I think those two things, just reverse engineering and looking at behavior, and then even starting to get curious about what is happening physically in my body when I'm under stress. Like when I feel triggered, when things happen, when I'm afraid, how does that manifest itself in my body? And the easiest way to respond to that is with the exact same symptom. So if you feel really hot and flushed, you feel angry, you have to get the anger out of your body. You have to allow that to process. For me, it's I chuck a medicine ball, or I'm investing in a punching bag that I can literally keep in my office, so that I may not be mad at a client, but I don't want the anger I feel because of something that happened in my personal life to come out. I don't want to be more aggressive. The fight has to come out. And it's when we don't honor the fight or flight or the freeze or the fawn responses that we suppress, and we build these layers and layers upon all of the stuff that's happening. And it becomes 10 times worse than if we just allowed it to process. So even for me, last year, my dad passed away unexpectedly. And I compare and contrast that with the experience of having a huge like business failure years prior. The way that I've engaged and shown up because I honored the physicality of my emotions versus the years that I couldn't talk about what had gone on in my business without physically shaking, feeling nauseous, because I had never honored and allowed those emotions to process through my body. It didn't require me to go into a hypnosis therapy and relive the experience. It simply required me to honor what my body was holding on to. I played a song. I slammed the medicine ball for a few minutes. I screamed at the people I had never allowed myself to scream at, not literally, but just in the safety of my house. And it released it. And I allowed that to flow out of me instead of holding it trapped. So that's one way. People need to just allow themselves to feel their feelings and not judge it or be afraid to feel anger and let anger process. Or you need to walk away, go sprint, like jump on a treadmill and sprint, or run around the house, 50 times. When you do that, it's going to allow you to show up with a lot clearer head. Your logical brain gets to come back to the table as soon as you've allowed those physical responses to process.
One of the things that I did while playing sports, and now I'm coaching little league with my son too, so I kind of use this kind of stuff too, is that sometimes when let's just say you make a mistake, right, as a business owner or investor. And I always talk about the compounding errors in sports. And the reason why you're compounding errors is, let's just say if somebody's making a mistake, the next thing that you do is you're trying so hard because you're making that mistake that you make another mistake because it's all emotionally driven, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's another mistake. And it's the worst thing that you can do at that stage is just stay in that funk and just keep grinding and go harder and harder at it, because you're actually just you're causing more chaos in
Yeah.
that example. So it's almost like in sports where if somebody makes a mistake and there's another mistake made, that's when you call a timeout, right? Kind of
Mm-hmm.
like everybody settle down, take a deep breath, step off, using the baseball analogy, step off the mound if you're the pitcher, step out of the box if you're the hitter, just
Reframe.
you
Yeah.
reframe, get outside of that, and then go back, reset, and start fresh. And then, but that takes years and years, right? And it's funny that when you say this as an adult and you use a little league baseball game as an example, everybody's like, yeah, you just have to call a timeout and let everybody reset, and just get out of that whole erratic kind of behavioral kind of like mode that you're in. But yet, as an adult and business and investing, this is exactly what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you said it can take a long time. And I think, yes, on a macro level, yeah, it takes a long time to build a habit and build the skill of saying, okay, I'm recognizing now what's going on inside my body. But when I say like taking the time to let that process through and reset, reframe, choose how you're going to respond instead of just react. I don't know about you, but I've spent a lot of years being very reactionary and not even realizing I had such a short fuse, and it didn't take a lot to throw me off a negative comment on social media, finding out somebody doesn't like you. Like I was so in the validation loop that I could easily be crumbled. And now it takes discipline, and I have to start my day really setting that intention for how I want to show up. But in the moment, This might look like my medicine ball is like maybe right here by my desk every day. And I'm going to recognize and see, oh, you're getting into this situation. You're not showing up the way you need to. You're feeling the anger. It's time to check the medicine ball. A minute and a half. It's not like take away an hour and go do a really intense workout. We're talking, it doesn't take long. And it can even be as simple as, oh, I feel hot, like my hands are starting to sweat. Go run them under cold water. You just respond to the physical symptom, and you're talking a matter of 30 to 90 seconds, and you're able to get back. And yet, like you said, I love that example. We'll spend so much time just trying to double down and push, push, push. More mistakes will be made. You're going to cause more damage. You're not going to show up. You're going to ruin an entire workday because you're just trying to push through it instead
Yep.
of choking your pride, feeling a little weird that you're chucking a medicine ball in your office and screaming at the top of your lungs, and then showing up again and being the person you want to be, the entrepreneur you want to be, or the investor you want to be. So it doesn't have to be difficult. It just requires you to actually do it and to not, be above it, not feel like it's silly to feel those feelings. And just like a kid, they're not afraid to scream and get mad when they feel anger. They're not afraid to run away when they don't want to hear what their parents have to say. We have to allow our bodies to do the exact same things that kids just naturally do.
So tell me a little bit about the online world. What are some of the things that you're seeing right now that are pretty exciting, and some of the biggest trends?
I mean, I don't think I've done a single interview on our podcast without talking about AI in some capacity. How it's relevant is obviously different across industries. And I think we all know, like, yeah, you can use ChatGPT to write your emails and things like that. But I think for me, even connecting to what I do, I'm seeing this really cool shift where we're going to be able to automate so many more things from a standpoint of AI agents, where we don't even have to hire as many people. And I know that sounds cold, I think, to some who don't want AI to replace jobs, but it gives us more ability to connect. And I think at the end of the day, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're trying to build a passive wealth, that's what we want. We want more time to feel more freedom. And so I'm excited by that, seeing that there's even more things. My mind is blown daily by what things that we can automate, the systems that we can set up that are just beyond next level. And so that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a huge shift. I thought for a while, being in the coaching space, the information space, if you will, that was going to detract, that all the access to information was going to actually like take me out of a job. But I'm seeing it actually being the opposite, that we need more of the human connection and more of the facilitation and the context for all the information we have. And we need to help other people to actually move forward and not just be in an information overload. So I think it's really exciting we have so much, but I think it can be a little bit daunting that it's moving so fast. We have so many options available to us. But yeah, I also see a shift too. If you don't already have money you're making, I've seen a lot of guests come on the show. So if your listeners are looking for ways to just start cash flow, a lot of things happening off the internet, a lot of businesses that because of AI that are not as scalable, like that being a really smart way to just spend your time acquiring a trade. On our show, we love to speak to the younger generations and show them ways that they can start building businesses instead of just going to school and acquiring debt. And that is a consistent theme we've seen, is like, don't knock sales, don't knock trades, because having a foundational skill is really powerful and it'll make you competitive in the world where everybody's over here looking in one direction with AI and the internet. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily a progression or an advancement, but I do think it's an important shift to be aware of.
I like the name too, Millionaire University, the show that you're doing too, and that whole platform, because yeah, education needs to be flipped on its head, and especially
Mm-hmm.
right now. I mean, talking to a lot of young people that are either graduating or even looking to go to colleges, it's, you have to look at this and weigh up, this is an investment, and the
Mm-hmm.
point is to get a return out of it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
especially if it's leveraged with debt, which most people don't even understand how that works. If you if you have some money to pay for it, or your parents are paying for it, or you have, have to borrow money, it's capital that has to go into for 4 years, and are you actually going to be paying that back or
Mm-hmm.
generate a return on that? There's other sources, again, like Millionaire University. Time better spent listening to that than to a professor talking about, all
Hypotheticals.
kinds of, you know, theories that have no bearing on reality whatsoever, right? For
Yep.
4 years.
I know. Yep. So we we hope that people who come listen and hear episodes like yours get at least the beginning. It's like the 101 version of every class, right? All of our guests are extremely knowledgeable and talented in their own right. And so if we can replace that, if we can create space where people instantly are learning, my teenagers, if they can listen and learn, oh, that's how I would build that kind of business. That's how I would start investing. That's how I generate cash flow. That's a win for everyone. So yeah, it's a cool time to be alive. It's really exciting to see us shift out of some norms that have stayed for decades. And with that is going to come growing pains, but thankfully we have shows like yours, shows like ours to help guide the process.
Now, we talk a lot about business, we talk about investing, we talk about cash flow, but we also talk about legacy on the show. So I always ask my first-time guest, if you cannot pass on any money to future generations, and you are only allowed to pass on three principles or values to them to help them build wealth and achieve success and happiness, what would they be?
Oh my gosh, I love that you asked this question, because a few years ago, I asked myself a similar question. Like, in business, we always ask, what do we want to be known for? And I realized as a mother, I wanted to ask myself that too. What do I want to be remembered for by my children? What do I want them to know me for? Because I can't be everything. I can't be the expert at everything. I can't be good at everything for my children. And so I asked myself that question and realized a few of the things that are really important to me to pass down is laughter, fun. Like, I don't want life to ever be too serious. I want them to know how to thoroughly enjoy life, laugh at themselves, find joy, fulfillment in that. Music is another one. I think it is such a huge core of creativity and passion, and it connects us in a beautiful way. And so if I can at least pass down some of the musical passion that I have, the musical gifts that I have been given to my children, and hope that that continues on, that would be one of them. And then I think, honestly, the things that we've been talking about today, the emotional intelligence, the ability to know who you are at a root level and to show up in the world, knowing that you're here for a reason, knowing you have a purpose, and that there is no world in which you don't belong right now at this very time, and that you do not have a very distinct purpose to fulfill. So those are probably the three things that I would want to pass down via a legacy. And I think having that gives anybody the ability to generate wealth, and at the end of the day, really just show up with pure joy and contribute to the society. And they don't have to be wealthy. I think an understanding that money doesn't make you wealthy, but a sense of who you are and a sense of how you contribute to the world is what makes you the most wealthy you can be.
Those are fantastic. Kirsten, where can people follow you? Where can they stay in touch of all of the many projects that you're involved in, and how can they connect with you?
Awesome. Yeah, they can head over to millionaireuniversity.com if they want to check out that podcast and all the things we have. We have some free training over there as well. And then if they want to follow me personally, I'm on Instagram and TikTok primarily. Kirsten Tyrrel is my username. And then you can also head to my website. I have a fun quiz that will help you figure out what's blocking your next level of success. And you can just go to kirstentyrell.com/quiz. I'll send you all the links. You can throw them out to everyone in your show notes.
Sounds good. We'll do so. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge and your journey with my listeners and providing so much value.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
And thank you so much for all of my listeners and my viewers for, again, spending the most valuable resource, your time, with me on the show today. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. We've got over 1,000 podcasts, 4 books, reports, webinars, reports, much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the #1 newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. Until next time, live infinitely. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.